John, and thank you for joining us.
Good evening, and thank you for having me here. It's always a pleasure to join you to discuss matters economy.
Indeed. Let us start with unpacking the Appropriations Bill and looking at some of the notable features that particularly benefit the small medium enterprises.
Okay, so first is that Income Tax Amendment Bill 2025 that proposes that if you start a business owned by a citizen, should be exempt from income tax for 3 years, but they should be able to file the return in order to benefit from that. So that's a good thing in the sense that for the first time, government is saying, you start and move. You know, we've been complaining. You know, someone can't start today and then you start asking for tax. How can that happen? You're not giving him money, and then he has borrowed, he has done everything. Then you come that you pay your fair share. Which fair share they pay? So we are now aligned with government. Let startups be allowed to move, pick information. Then because through the return you're able to see how they are performing. Exactly. Then at some point after 3 years they start paying their fair share. And
I think also the taxes, as you've seen this as saying that most of the new businesses do not live up to their first birthday.
Exactly, and those are some of the bottlenecks. So we are glad that government has seen the light on that one. Okay. Then there is this idea of the tax Procedures Code Amendment Bill 2025 that proposes that, you know, if you have this national identification number, the NIN number, then you have to go to URA to get a TIN number for the individual. Okay. Then the companies which are registered with URSB has a registration number, then goes to the also has a TIN number. So they've tried to merge by saying that the NIN number can act as a TIN, a tax identification number for the individual, and then the URSB registration number can act as a tax identification number for a non-individual. That can be good and bad, because you see there are many people who have national identification numbers and are really not engaged in gainful work. So what you are going to find is that you're simply going to bloat the tax register with farmers, with people who don't touch money. They are outside the money economy. Those are being targeted by PDM. Now they're on the tax register. Okay? Because you should have waited for them to transition, then now you bring them. But now they are still outside, but you're expecting money from them. So I think it may simply create a lot of work for URA. But I know that they are trying to make sure that they fast track formalization. But that is a shortcut. They need to do the hard work. Similarly with companies, there are many briefcase companies. I just a company, I get a certificate. Not every company that is registered is functional, and not every functional company is registered. So how do you solve that problem? URA should focus on people who are actually making money. Not people who are registered. There are very many companies that are registered, they are not functional. So I don't entirely agree, and I don't appreciate the justification.
When you say they're not functional, what exactly do you mean? They're not in operation?
There are many briefcase companies. I register Walugembe Limited, then I say Walugembe and so Limited and Sons, and I just keep it there waiting for an opportunity. And all so these tender entrepreneurs, that's what they do. They have no form office, they have no one, they're just waiting for an opportunity. And
are they subject to being taxed?
Of course, they're supposed to file returns, and ordinarily they would file new returns. Okay, so URA shouldn't concern itself with such, because they are not involved in gainful work. Therefore, if you run after them for tax, you're simply wasting it. These are speculators. See? So for me, URA should keep its eye on the ball. Who is actually engaged in business? Because at the end of the day, you want a percentage of what they are earning. If it's income tax, you want 30%. If it's pay as you earn, you have to be sure that they are paying, they actually have employees. But now for some of the big companies, they can't pay payee, they can't, you know, so you're just really wasting resources.
So as we continue to look at some of these features in the new bill, looking at the one that has with extending or looking at small startup businesses being exempted from paying taxes, do we see more startups happening because of this incentive?
Ideally, because people have not been starting business. You start,
for the fear.
Then you start getting emails. Then there's the way they estimate, I don't know, with artificial intelligence, they say we are demanding you 100 million, you have not touched 500,000, and someone gets a heart attack, says, let me leave business alone. But now, if you tell people, you start for 3 years, you won't pay, but just fire, then it's fine. But then, you have to go a step further. Support them to learn how to fire. Don't assume that because it's in the law, people do the right thing. And then the other thing, of course, that's also of interest is the issue of the IFRIS fine.
Yes.
You know, there was this prohibitive fine of 6 million. You know, tax fines and penalties are not meant to be punitive or prohibitive. If I make a mistake and then you ask me for 6 million, then I make a mistake, an invoice of 300,000, then you fine me 6 million. It doesn't make sense.
So it has been scrapped off. It
has been scrapped off, but also the solution is not the best because they are saying now you pay double the tax. Not a penalty should simply be a percentage of the principal, maybe 5% or 10%. But if you say double, it's like URA is making more money off penalties. So incentivizing them not to actually look for actual tax, but to simply specialize in technicalities so that they accumulate and hit their targets through such penalties. You know, so for me, I would say they can revise that to a percentage, maybe 15, 10%, something that's logical.
Okay. And so what does it mean when this bill is finally passed into law?
No, I think these last years we've been having very progressive tax proposals. Maybe because the PSST came from the private sector, research and an analyst, so he's able to advise that, no, this won't pass. So this one has made us particularly happy because for the first time we aligned. Let us allow more Ugandans to start businesses. Business is not just about tax. We want to create jobs for young people. We want to ensure that businesses are hotbeds for innovation. We want to support people to learn through businesses. So businesses have very many advantages beyond paying tax. So to the extent that we are now saying startups are exempted from tax, it's a good thing. Now the question is, what other support can we give them to ensure that they grow? And that's a question, it's a rhetorical question that I can leave to the policymakers to answer.
Okay, and so now, you know, there is an issue when it comes to the implementation of the various ideas that are shared.
Yes.
And so what is it going to take to see that the implementation of this bill actually thrives, especially in favor of the SMEs, because it looks like they are the ones that are being, you know, favored.
And startups. No, they should be favored because if you want to grow your economy, that's the only way. No, I think what government needs to do is to engage in tax education. Let's educate the SMEs to take advantage of this. Let's ensure that we encourage young people to start businesses. Let's not complicate the process. The return thing is okay, but if we think that, simplify the return process. Why don't you create an app where I make 1 or 2 entries and then that's it? No, so let's look at simplifying the process and making sure that people are aware of the how.
Okay, and maybe finally, as you give us your closing remarks, does this apply to all kinds of startups or those that are attached to a certain capital outlay?
No, so you shouldn't exceed 500 million, which is good, by the way, because 500 is, you know, gives you leg room. So you shouldn't exceed 500 million, which is
as a capital,
positive.
As capital for startup?
No, as the not capital, as turnover.
As turnover.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, John Walugembe. He is the Executive Director of the Federation of Small and Medium Scale Enterprises. It's always a pleasure to have you talking matters in the economy.